Be around 60 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Before we get into matters of geopolitical importance, text from 630, standing for 10 minutes makes you slice, haha. I was referring to the Garrick Higo incident yesterday, the South African golfer who got a two-stroke penalty, the PGA, first round of the PGA, for being late to the tee. Said, I don't really feel like I need to get there 10 minutes early. But the makes you slice thing, maybe this was the person who called in last week during Open Mic Friday. Somebody called in and said, they're slicing, and did I have any tips for them to stop the slice? And I did. The way I played this week, I shouldn't be giving advice to anybody. Anyway, I forgot to mention this, so I'll get this in now. I got a response after the show from Gary Groh, who was the pro at Bobolink for 35 years, former tour player, great ball striker. He said this: I enjoyed your explanation on how to cure slice, which was very generous. But he said, that's a generous thing for him to say to my advice. He said, the best way, so listen up, all you who cut across the ball. The best way to correct the slice is to split your grip. Put your left hand at the end of the grip and the right hand on the small end of the grip so your hands are split. Take a few small swings and you will see how the swing reacts. No slice. So there's your Tour Pro endorsed panacea for the slice. All right, Gary Groh. Listen to Gary Groh. Don't listen to me. But at least I got you the answer from a pro. So that should help. Now, what my game needs is beyond probably even the help of Gary Groh. All right. Matters more important than that, slightly. President Trump's time with Xi in Beijing has come to an end, and they offered the customary pleasantries and backslapping and platitudes. But some of the things that Trump said, specifically on Iran, let's focus there. I mean, there were other matters too, trade matters, which we talked a little bit about earlier in the program. Trump did a postmortem with Sean Hannity on the discussions with Xi, but on Iran generally, he had some revised things to say to the president.
Now they can make a deal, or they get annihilated. I don't want to do that. Yeah. But we have the greatest military, and when you do news conferences, you're getting the word out that you're not going to read in the New York Times.
And in terms of this ceasefire period, quote unquote, whatever Iran thinks they have done to try to reconstitute themselves can be undone, and he's telegraphing will be undone in a day.
They have no anti-aircraft. Now, they probably have. I mean, we know everything they've done. They built it up a little bit. We'll take it out in one day. It'll all be gone. I hope they're watching, because all of their anti-stuff, anything they put up, we know exactly what they put up. They had a little respite, and so they're trying to get a few things together. They have taken some missiles from underground. We know exactly what they're doing. It'll all be gone in one day. Everything they've done for the last 4 weeks will be gone in one day.
President Trump also said she committed to him that he will not be providing any weapons to Iran, and offered help.
She would like to see a deal made. He would like to see a deal made. And he did offer. He said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help. Because,
he did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. And look, anybody that buys that much oil has obviously got some kind of a relationship with him. But he said, I would love to be of help. If I could be of any help whatsoever, he'd like to see the Hormuz Strait open. He said, if I could be of any help whatsoever, I would like to help.
For more on this, Daniel DePetris joins us, fellow at the Defense Priorities and a syndicated foreign affairs columnist at the Chicago Tribune and Newsweek. Daniel, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Morning, Dan. How you doing?
Good. So, I mean, the pomp and circumstance was all very impressive, and the two seemed very chummy. But at the end of the day, other than, the concrete trade deals that will either be consummated or not, and those will be easy to measure. Either they buy 200 planes from Boeing or they don't. Either they buy more soybeans or they don't. All of this other business in terms of what he said and what Trump thinks about what he said is to be taken with a grain of salt, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It is interesting that President Trump and President Xi, got along fairly well on a personal level. But you're right to point out that the lack of tangible agreements here after 2 days in Beijing is pretty notable. There wasn't anything on Taiwan. There wasn't anything specific on ending the war in Iran or reopening the strait, regardless of what Trump told, Sean Hannity on Fox News. A lot of the president's opponents will probably bash him for not getting agreements with President Xi. I would actually argue that they are completely off course and mistaken. I think anybody who expected Xi and Trump to actually sign something tangible was probably setting themselves up for disappointment. That's just not how statesmanship works, particularly when you have two adversaries that are, structurally competitive across a bunch of fields, economically and politically.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to happen, right? I mean, okay, I'm going to sign an agreement that says I won't send weapons to Iran and I'll help you open the strait in these ways, and then you're going to sign an agreement that says I won't interfere when we invade Taiwan. I mean, that's just, come on. First of all, that's never going to happen, and secondly, if it did, it wouldn't be worth the paper it was written on.
Right. To take it all with a grain of salt. The Trump administration, going back to the first term, this isn't the first time they've dealt with the Chinese in a substantive way, right? I mean, they had the phase one trade deal back in January 2020 that they signed after over a year of pretty substantial, tough negotiations. And it turned out that the Chinese kind of slow rolled on implementation and, buying a lot of the agricultural products from American farmers that they committed to. So with China, you always want to kind of do the whole Reagan thing, trust but verify. I think that's true. It really doesn't matter what the Chinese say in public. It matters what they're actually doing and whether they're actually implementing what they agree to on paper.
Do you agree with Trump, though, that he believes that Xi shares his view that Iran should not have nuclear weapons, even the Chinese communists who may see Iran as, one of their proxies of convenience for now? I mean, it would make some sense that they would be opposed to a nuclearized Iran in terms of weaponry.
Yeah, I think that is true. It's been a long-standing position in China that they are adamantly opposed to Iranian nuclear proliferation as a matter of principle. The question, of course, is whether China is willing to assist the United States in that effort. Right now, it seems like both countries are sort of working at cross purposes, whereas the Trump administration is using a substantial amount of economic and military pressure to kind of coerce the Iranians into giving up their nuclear program, whereas China is more in tune with providing the Iranians maybe with a degree of indigenous enrichment that the world can kind of accept, but under strict international protocols and things like that. So I think the United States and China have a similar end goal, but the way they're going about it is substantially different.
There seems to be a lot of argument about Iran's current wherewithal. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Bradley Cooper said the reports that Iran retains 70 to 75% of their ballistic missiles are untrue. Another report said 90% of the mines, the estimated mines that were laid by the Iranians have been swept, so they no longer pose a threat in the strait. We've given varying estimates of the drone capacity that the Chinese, that the Iranians have left. I mean, Do you have a good sense of Iranian wherewithal and who we should believe? I mean, the only thing, because I got into disagreement with somebody who's clearly opposed from American Conservative earlier this week, someone clearly opposed to this military action in Iran. But, there's intel assessments, there's reporting in one outlet, there's over here. I just go back and look at, say, well, what has Iran showed us they have the capacity to do? And at the end of the day, I know they've done some damage in some Gulf states, and there's even varying reports on how much damage they have inflicted. But it just doesn't seem like they have very much capacity. And in point of fact, this is what Admiral Cooper said in congressional testimony.
Capability have been significantly degraded. If I just use my own professional experience, in 100 transits through the Strait of Hormuz, you would typically see 20 to 40 fast boats, and lately we've seen 2 or 3.
That's a significant reduction. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said this about Karg Island and the Iranian oil business.
Karg Island, we've seen that there have been no loadings in the past 3 days. We believe their storage is full. None of the ships are getting out. None are coming in, so they're not able to store oil on the water. So they're going to start shutting down their production. I think that they are on their last legs, and the blockade, President Trump's blockade, has been a resounding success.
So, I mean, I guess the big question, Daniel, that wraps this all up is Iran being slowly and methodically suffocated or not?
Well, I mean, there's no question whatsoever that the Iranian economy is hurting. I mean, they rely on a substantial amount of their budget on oil exports, and the vast majority of those go through the Strait of Hormuz, which, of course, is blocked by the U.S. U.S. blockade right now. They can sort of deal a little bit with the embargo by using alternative trade routes like rail lines and things like that to export some of their oil. It's not going to make up for, the 1.5, 2 million barrels of oil that they used to send before the war. But there is a way for the Iranians to sort of chip away at the damage. In terms of military stuff, I'm with you, Dan. I think it's very difficult to know one way or the other because there's just so much conflicting information going on. I think if you're a U.S. policymaker, you have to assume the worst. So you have to assume that the Iranians retain a significant amount of missile capacity and drone capacity, particularly if President Trump makes the decision to kind of resume the war after 4 or 5 weeks of ceasefire. I think if you're a policymaker, you can't bet on the rosy scenario. You have to assume that the Iranians have more than what the generals are telling you. That's my personal take on it.
And so then, so that informs the decision whether or not to maintain patience, frankly, and let the combination of the blockade and Operation what's the economic version of Epic Fury, Economic Fury, whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about. Let that continue to just whittle down the Iranians.
I think that's what the administration is trying to do. Trump is sort of caught between escalating militarily, and I don't think he wants to do that in the end. I think he just wants the blockade to kind of, atrophy the Iranian economy to the point where the Ayatollahs kind of like sign on the dotted line. I don't know how likely that is. I'm personally of the opinion that the Iranians are far more stubborn than Trump gives them credit for. I think right now the most possible scenario is just continuing what he's been doing for the last several months, which is kind of put a damper on the Iranian economy long term. I don't think he wants to escalate this any more than it needs to be escalated. And I have a very hard time believing that Trump is actually going to sign what the Iranians want him to sign.
No, I agree with you there. But he keeps talking about these targets that have been identified that have not been taken out yet. And, talking provocatively about that, I'm sure he's trying to draw a reaction. He's not getting much of one. And even if he did get one, rhetorically, how can you trust it with the people that you're dealing with? And so, doesn't, as they say, kinetic action have a place here if you really want to drive the point home and or take out this whatever's left of the IRGC leadership?
Well, I mean, it depends on what Trump wants to achieve, right? I mean, if he wants to sign a deal that limits the Iranian nuclear program to the point where the world is confident that a bomb is outside of the realm of possibility, I think he can do that diplomatically, and he doesn't need to go through further escalation.
Although, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but on that, they've already done the Lucy with the football routine. We're going to turn over the enriched uranium. No, we're not. And Trump has said, they're going to turn it over. We're going to come and get it. So if they're not going to turn it over, or you can't trust they will, then you got to go get it. Apparently, that's what both Netanyahu and him have said.
Yeah, I don't. First of all, I don't know if the Iranians actually agreed to turn over the enriched uranium. The Trump says that, but Trump says a lot of things. So I would just.
But if they didn't say that, then that's even worse. That's even more of a problem.
Well, you don't have to turn the uranium over. You can dilute it to a point where it's no longer a threat, and you can put it under IAEA monitors. That's
right.
Another option.
Yes.
The question, for me at least, Dan, is whether Trump is willing to kind of give away certain things that would be hard politically for him to give away. And by that I mean, full-scale sanctions relief that the Iranians have been demanding for decades. So it's a very hard question for him. What does he want? Does he want to limit the program at a possible political cost, or does he want to escalate and possibly deal with more, economic turmoil on the back end? I don't want to. It's an unenviable position for him. I don't want to be President Trump right now.
Well, I mean, these things. I mean, as he and Rubio have said. I mean, we've allowed this to metastasize for half a century. These things do not come without costs, right? That's just, life is about trade-offs, and so there's going to be some pain. You're even talking about pain at the pump. He's not being cavalier about it. It's just he's just being hard-headed, like the reality-based about it. What we're trying to do is not risk-free. Anytime you're trying to do something important, there are risks associated with it. So it's a balancing act and test.
That's right. And that's a perfect message that people should remember. I mean, every policy decision is of cost-benefit analysis, right? There's no ideal scenario out there, and I think that the Trump administration is really working through its options and trying to determine the best course of action as they see fit.
Just quickly on another matter, what was your interpretation of John Ratcliffe's visit to Cuba?
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think I read this is the first high-profile, the senior-most profile trip in Cuba since at least a decade. So this tells me one of two things. Number one, the administration is deadly serious about, negotiating with the Cubans in terms of, economic concessions. And it's not a surprise, right? I mean, President Trump has been pretty adamant that Cuba needs to come to the table and start talking seriously. The other read here is that the CIA director kind of went to Havana and sort of read the riot act to the Cubans: cooperate, or something more, disastrous is going to happen to you down the line. He may have done both. We don't know. Yeah. He may have done both, but it is very significant that the CIA director was in Havana for sure.
Yeah, I'd like him back in America because I want him to answer questions about what that COVID whistleblower from CIA had to say in testimony this week. But I digress. Daniel DePetris, fellow at Defense Priorities and a syndicated foreign affairs columnist at the Tribune, Chicago Tribune, and Newsweek. Daniel, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, Dan. Thank you.
And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
You need a construction company, but who?
Call Crestcom.